Okay, let's dig into this. What if, um, what if everything you thought about creativity
Hmm.
was, well, maybe fundamentally misunderstood?
Yeah.
We often picture creativity as this, rare spark, maybe a lightning strike.
Hmm.
Hits only a few lucky people.
Right. The chosen few.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe they're locked away in some perfect studio, endless free time. It feels like a luxury, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Something for, the artists.
That picture is super common, absolutely. But the source material we're diving into today, it kind of throws that whole idea on its head.
Oh, really? How so?
It makes this really powerful argument that creativity isn't a luxury. Not at all. In fact, it suggests it's as fundamental to being human as, well, as eating or talking or even breathing.
Wow, breathing. That's a striking claim.
It is.
So our mission then in this deep dive is to really explore this perspective. It's the one from the source, right?
Mm.
This idea that creativity is deeply innate
Mm.
and how it might connect, maybe surprisingly, to principles you'd find in something like, say, Zen.
Yeah, the parallels are fascinating.
And maybe the most counterintuitive part,
Mm.
why our usual attempts to structure it or force it or even aim it at specific goals might actually be the very things holding it back.
Precisely. We're going to look at some really interesting insights from the text here, like why trying too hard can be the exact opposite of what you need,
Okay.
and what creativity actually has in common with something as effortless, usually, as breathing.
Right.
And this really challenging idea that maybe the most profound creative inspiration, it might not always feel good.
Not feel good.
The source uses the word unbearable.
Unbearable. Okay. So, yeah, get ready to maybe rethink what it means to be creative. We're going to be guided by the ideas laid out in this text.
Right. So the source kicks off by stating pretty directly that being creative is fundamentally innate. It's not some skill you learn or a special talent you have to acquire. It's just baked into us.
Baked in.
It's been a natural human priority forever,
Yeah.
The source points to our ancestors carving images on cave walls. That wasn't some luxury activity back then.
Right. That was expression. Pure expression. And the text argues we've sort of mistakenly pigeonholed it since then.
Exactly.
But it's actually, according to the source, a core way we learn, communicate, even look inward. It puts it really powerfully.
Yeah.
We are constantly in manifestation of it.
Constantly. I love that phrasing. It's not just confined to the canvas or the stage, right?
Yeah.
The medium might change. Rock carvings become, I don't know, pixels, but that inherent human drive to imprint something, to craft, to give form to an idea, it's always there.
So like the clothes you chose this morning or how you arrange your desk.
That's what the source suggests, yeah.
Yeah.
Even the specific way you phrase a sentence. It's this unseen, continuous flow.
Okay, so if it's this innate, constant thing, why does it often feel so difficult?
Yeah.
So elusive? This must be where the source makes that really interesting turn towards Zen principles.
It is. And what's fascinating here, the source isn't saying you need to, become a Zen master or anything.
Okay.
It's just highlighting these parallel principles it sees as, well, crucial for creative flow. Things like presence, mindfulness, intuition, and really critically, non-resistance and non-judgment.
Non-resistance, non-judgment. That feels totally counter to the usual advice, doesn't it?
Completely.
We're normally told. Show up, put in the hours, grind it out, follow a routine, structure your time, push through blocks. Basically, force it if you have to.
The hustle mentality applied to creativity.
Yeah. And the source actually talks about trying those classic routines, probing for deep corners, being even when you don't want to.
Yeah.
And found every bit of it was, well, a dead end.
Yes. It's just all that effort was just trying to impose an external structure onto something that's inherently internal and natural. And according to the source, that just made the whole process stagnate.
Like trying to build scaffolding around a river.
Kind of, yeah. You're trying to build something onto it instead of letting it flow.
Okay. And this is where that breathing analogy comes in, which I found really insightful.
It's a great analogy.
The source asks you to imagine if writing or painting or singing, what if it came as naturally and effortlessly as breathing?
Yeah, it describes breathing as this process, right? Effortlessly draws upon what's outside you, the air.
Right.
Transforms it as it goes through you, and then it's released, changed.
Okay.
And the text makes the case that creativity, like breathing, gets all tensed up, stressed, difficult.
Yeah.
Precisely when you try to consciously control it or force it.
Wow. So pushing through resistance, trying to stick to that rigid schedule,
Yeah.
that might be like trying to think really hard about how to inhale and exhale correctly.
That's exactly the source's argument. It's imposing deliberate effort onto something that's meant to be, ideally, an effortless flow.
Mhm.
And the source takes this even further. It identifies another major obstacle: end goals.
And goals.
Hmm.
But hang on, aren't goals important? How can aiming for a specific outcome actually hinder creativity? That seems odd.
It does seem odd at first glance, yeah. But the source suggests that if you have a really pre-prescribed path or a very specific outcome fixed in your mind right from the start, okay,
You're no longer truly following that internal impulse, that spark. Instead, you're kind of trying to reverse engineer something or align yourself with, well, somebody else's path, maybe.
I see. So the inspiration you think you're following might just be you trying to recreate a version of something you saw and admired out there in the external world.
Precisely. And the source makes a really bold claim here. It says you'll struggle to be truly inspired by work that comes from a core truth,
A core truth.
either your own or someone else's, if your main focus is on those external end goals
Yeah.
or validation.
Okay. Why is that connection so crucial, according to the source?
Yeah.
What's different about inspiration that comes from this core truth?
Well, the text argues that inspiration from a core truth, it doesn't just show you an idea, it shows you something really profound about yourself.
About yourself.
Yeah, not just something you think or feel, but, as the source puts it, your truest truth. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
Because the source says that's what makes the process of creation, when it really comes from that deep place. Sometimes feel.
Unbearable.
Unbearable, yes.
It's a strong word, isn't it? The source suggests it's precisely because this kind of creation reveals a deep, maybe uncomfortable, maybe vulnerable truth about yourself that it can feel like too much to handle sometimes.
So it's not the happy, easy flow state we always imagine.
Not necessarily, no. It can be intense.
The very act of expressing your deepest self can actually be difficult. And the source is claiming that's why we instinctively reach for external structure, for validation, for inspiration that keeps us on a safer, known path, to avoid facing that intensity.
It's the profound implication, yeah. That's what the text suggests. We seek out those external frameworks, maybe unconsciously, as a way to step back from the vulnerability that true internal creation might demand.
Wow.
But the source brings it back to those Zen principles again. It says the most creativity can be fostered when you learn to engage with it without passing judgment.
Like mindfulness meditation, observing thoughts without judgment.
Exactly like that. Observing your creative impulses, your output objectively, without layering on judgment. That's presented as a path to creative peace, you could say.
And that non-judgment applies to the actual stuff you create too, right? The source acknowledges that, some of what you make you'll want to share, maybe some you won't.
And crucially, that's perfectly okay. It's imperative to realize, as the source points out, that even the most prolific artists we admire, they weren't constantly creating or sharing every single thing all the time.
Right. We only see the finished product, usually.
Exactly. Considering periods of inactivity or just private creation of failure, that's just attaching another layer of ego or external expectation onto what should be a natural ebb and flow.
Because according to the source,
Oh.
you cannot quantify your creativity. It's not a metric.
Nope.
And while it is an extension and expression of you, it doesn't define who you are or your worth.
Absolutely. You are free, the source implies, to hold the sacredness of your most inner self and its expressions purely within your own existence. You don't have to share it.
Okay.
And the more you can express and live from that place without judgment, just being in the moment, the more you'll feel the freedom to be honest and, well, open up to yourself.
And the source concludes by saying that the more you become comfortable simply being with that core self, free from all those external pressures or judgments.
The more you'll feel able to create from a peaceful, almost effortless place.
Just because.
Yeah.
Whenever that natural flow happens.
Just because, yeah. So maybe we should quickly recap the key insights we've pulled from this source material.
Good idea. So first we explored this core idea that creativity isn't presented as some rare luxury, but as a totally innate human process.
Right, as natural and constant as eating or thinking, manifesting all the time in our lives, maybe in ways we don't even notice, like choosing clothes or arranging a desk.
Then we revisited that really intriguing connection the text makes between effective creative flow and principles found in Zen.
Things like mindfulness, non-resistance, non-judgment. Suggesting these help clear the path for that innate process to just happen.
And we definitely looked at the sources critique of those traditional structured creative routines and focusing too much on specific end goals.
Yeah, arguing that like trying to force your breathing, these conscious efforts can actually lead to stagnation. They can pull you away from your own unique path towards maybe someone else's.
We also had to touch on that really challenging idea from the source. That true inspiration, the stuff coming from that core truth inside.
Can sometimes feel unbearable.
Right. Because it reveals something deep, maybe difficult about yourself.
And how that feeling might explain why we sometimes instinctively reach for external structure or validation. Maybe not to enhance the creativity, but almost to cushion the blow, avoid the intensity of really facing ourselves in the act.
Yeah, that's a heavy thought. And reinforcing the source's message,
Mm,
your creative expression is valid just because you are valid.
totally. Regardless of whether it's shared or made consumable or liked or anything.
Creativity can't be quantified. It doesn't define you. And it's okay if creation isn't, consistently prolific or winning awards.
It's just okay for it to be what it is.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the source suggests that freedom to be honest and open with yourself, that acceptance of the core self,
Mhm.
is directly connected to the ability to create from that peaceful, effortless place, just because, whenever the impulse arises naturally.
Yeah.
So, thinking about all that, if true creative inspiration, as this source suggests, reveals your truest truth, and that whole process can sometimes feel unbearable, what might that suggest about the fundamental relationship between creative expression and the often challenging, sometimes uncomfortable journey of self-discovery?
That's definitely something to really mull over.